Back at it on a Thursday afternoon again. Awesome to catch up with Ben Troop. Ben and BJ Bennett and those guys do a tremendous job, not only with Three and Out, but with SouthernPigskin.com. And to know that Ben's putting his book out, or this book's going to be coming out, that's pretty neat too. So I'm an audio book guy. I don't feel like with everything I do, I have a lot of time to like sit down and read. But man, give me an opportunity to put in some earbuds and mow the lawn or travel and listen to a book. I'm in it. And here's my dad mode. So I don't know how many of you do this, but so I'm driving, right? Got the wife to the right, got the two kids in the back. I go left earbud, right? For a little discretion. You go right earbud, rude. I go left earbud, listening to whatever I want to, whether it's Dave Ramsey, whether it's Arn Anderson, whether it's the Ben Troop book when it comes out. And I'm just tuning in, And then I keep the right ear, always thinking here, fellas, I keep the right ear locked in on the wife and kids for things like, hey, hun, dad. And so then, you can give the little tap and pause, have a conversation, right back to it. So that's what I do. That's my way. And that's why I love audiobooks, etc. And again, great catching up with Ben. Let's see what you guys had to say about our interview with Ben Troop. By the way, if you're watching the show on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, feel free to comment. Kyle says, good afternoon. Good to see you, Kyle. Kyle's the honey king of the of Upper South Carolina. That's what I call him, at least. Anthony says, man, Ben is selling the Tigers and I am buying it. Yeah, he did sound pretty confident about Clemson going up against Georgia. I loved his quote, too, that he said about Georgia's bringing in five-star players. And Clemson's got five-star players, too, right? But he said, but Dabo Swinney's got a five-star culture. I thought that was a big deal. Linda's also in the house today. Of course, you guys tuned in to talk about the 2021 big weigh-in results, and we'll get to some of that stuff coming up here on the program a little bit later. Also, if you're new to our show, maybe check out our YouTube channel where we're doing some really unique things now that we've never done before, trying to push that envelope. Make sure you hit that like, share, subscribe, or whatever it is that they've got over there on YouTube so that you get informed when we put up a new video or when we do something like that. And again, tomorrow, the Clemson Tiger football team will be out on the gridiron. It's essentially day one for practice today with the big weigh-in, but then tomorrow we'll get a chance to hear from Dabo Swinney. And I think, if my memory's with me here on it, I think we got a couple of players, if I can recall what was on the paperwork that I was perusing a little bit earlier in the afternoon. But I do think that, Ben's pretty confident about Clemson, and I think that goes against some of the conversations that we've seen and heard, not only recently from Joey Galloway and also David Pollock, but I think the belief that Clemson doesn't get challenged in the Atlantic Coast Conference and how that could potentially impact them at any point. I think the main issues for me in this game are kind of what I've highlighted in the past. Number one, it's DJ and his youth and still inexperienced. No matter how much you like what he's done, you still got to do it as the guy. And that's a different role to be in. But he was at least groomed by and has been, if you buy into what his dad puts out on social media and talks about, and we talked with his head coach, Jason Negro, a few months back, right before Clemson was playing in that Notre Dame game. And Jason Negro said, just gave you all the positive vibes and feels around DJ and how cool and calm his demeanor really is. And I think that's going to be something, we've talked about NIL a little bit, and certainly we'll continue to dive into this conversation over the next month or so towards the college football campaign. But how much does NIL play into how these guys feel on a game day? Okay, does it make it substantially different? Is there more pressure? Is there less pressure? I tend to believe there's more pressure. Right? Like if Clemson Sports Talk, this radio show, had zero sponsors and I was just doing it for the fun of it, and I actually kind of do it for the fun of it. I'm just fortunate to make a little money doing it as well. But if it was just for fun, would there be more or less pressure? Probably less, because you go, it's just for fun anyway. But you want to put on a good radio show. You want to have a good performance. You want to have fun with your stakeholders, your listeners, so that they continue to tune in. And so that, for me, I think is part of what I wonder, will it add additional pressure to these guys? The other thing, too, from Clemson's standpoint in the opener is not having Travis Etienne. And even through Etienne's, portions of Etienne's freshman year, where he was just sort of a late game, take the top off of the defense, explosive back to maybe put Clemson in an ideal spot to close out a ball game. In years 2 and 3, I mean, he was a workhorse. And it's part of the reason he became the all-time leading rusher in the history of the ACC, including the fact that this past year they didn't play as many games. But will the committee, maybe that's what we should call them, will the committee at running back, Lynn J. Dixon, Kobe Pace, will those guys, Will Shipley, Phil Maffa, will they be able, will they be able to have the type of production, combined effort maybe, that even Etienne and crew weren't able to put together last year? This if you tune into the show. I thought Ches Malusi was going to be most likely, if not your starter this year, certainly your 1B behind 1A being Lynn J. Dixon. I'm also anxious to see Lynn J. in the capacity of being the guy, and whether or not Will Shipley and others can run him down sooner rather than later. 803-450-0086. Text line, phone line. Hit us up. Again, Clemson's big weigh-in results came out just before we went on the airwaves. We'll run down some of the notable changes. We haven't even punched them in on the website yet over on ClemsonSportsTalk.com. We'll be right back to talk about it next.